Raider Nation, the energy is pure adrenaline right now. This team is locked in to make life miserable for the Chargers, and the Raiders finally pulled the trigger on a big change at cornerback. The star on defense is dealing with double teams on almost every snap. There are new offensive wrinkles with a fresh voice calling plays and a quarterback standing in the fire who can walk out of this either as a hero or a villain, and there are things being said in the locker room that everyone is talking about. Stick around until the end, because the last story hits deep for everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football. But before we break all of this down, let me line something up with you. If this content helps you see the team beyond just the scoreboard, hit that subscribe button. It is quick, it is free, and it makes a huge difference for this silver and black community. Smash the like as well, because YouTube only pushes this video to more fans when it sees people reacting. And use the comments like that back and forth in the stands or hanging out with your friends. Drop your take whether you agree or disagree, because this space is exactly for the fan base to speak up loud. Let us start with what the Raiders are really playing for today against the Chargers. A lot of people out there already see this team as a lost cause this season. Loss after loss, winnable games slipping away, confidence on the outside sitting pretty much at zero. Big national writers are already saying it is not even worth picking Vegas on the road, that whenever the game tightens up, this team disappears. And I get where that comes from, because getting blown out in 7 games and being outscored by more than 120 points combined weighs on any narrative. But once the ball is snapped, the story is not that simple. There is still pride, there is still a division rivalry, and there is still a very real chance to mess up a rival's path. And most of all, there are still a few guys playing for respect, for their name, and for their legacy. That is where that monster on defense we all know so well comes in. He is the guy every offensive coordinator spends the entire week trying to erase from the game plan. What Pete Carroll said about him this week tells you everything. He basically admitted there is no game plan left in this league that treats that player like a simple one-on-one. It is double teams and sometimes triple teams, with running backs chipping and tight ends helping. Protections keep sliding his way, and even so, he keeps getting around the ball all game long. There are snaps where, literally, there are 4 hands and 2 bodies just dedicated to dealing with this one guy. And he still keeps coming, jogging back to the huddle out of breath, lining up again on the very next play. To be honest with you, that is what is stopping this defense from completely collapsing. That kind of effort, that stubbornness to keep hunting the quarterback even when the game feels gone, that is what holds together the silver and black identity. No analyst factors that in. They talk about points, records, and betting odds, but they do not weigh what it means to have a leader like that being targeted by an entire offensive line every week. Carroll himself said he understands that extra attention as a sign of respect, but it also drains him and wears him down. It hurts, and that is where the rest of the defense has to come in. You cannot leave it all on the guy who is doubled every snap. The entire unit has to respond, fill the spaces that open up on the other side, and turn all that attention into chances to make plays. If the Chargers offense walks off the field today saying this front 7 was a problem, that they could not just run their script in peace, that already sends a message. For the silver and black fan base, this game is a lot about pride, playing for something even when the standings do not help. Tell me in the comments if this matchup for you is more about spoiling the rival's season, more about testing your own dignity, or a bit of both at the same time. Now we have to face the truth about this secondary, especially in the slot. The Raiders roll into this game against the Chargers in a weird spot. The record is bad. There is not much left at stake in the standings, but the head coach is still very attached to this win-now mindset built around leaning on veterans. The problem is there are positions where that experience card just does not hold up anymore, and slot corner has become the symbol of that. Darnay Holmes won the job, kept his seat on the active roster while a promising young player bounced around on the practice squad, but his performance on the field did not follow. In a little over 120 coverage snaps, he has already given up almost 20 catches, more than 270 yards, and way too many touchdowns for someone who is supposed to be at least steady. And the worst part is that his most recent numbers are the most alarming ones. A game with very few snaps, but 2 deep receptions allowed and massive damage in just a handful of plays. The kind of outing that crushes any trust. Meanwhile, Greedy Vance has just been waiting. He lit it up in the preseason, stood out in those August games, became a talking point for people who actually follow this team closely. He did not make the initial 53-man roster, but he kept his head down, he kept working, kept studying, and stepped on the field whenever he got the call. In the only game he was active against the Jaguars, he was quiet in the best way for a corner, gave up one short catch, made a solid tackle, did his job in more than 10 snaps. No crazy highlight in the wrong way, no getting burned in humiliating fashion, just steady football. And there is more. In the preseason, Patrick Graham used Vance really well as a blitzer, sending him into the backfield as a surprise weapon. That is something you simply do not get from Holmes right now. Vance has that instinct to attack, to show up in the backfield, to be an active piece and not just a cone sitting in zone coverage. To be honest with you, this is exactly the kind of situation where the coaches cannot hide behind locker room talk. If the veteran is not giving you the present or the future, and the young guy shows he can help in both, the choice becomes obvious. Especially in a week where the Chargers are lining up dangerous names in the slot, technically sound receivers who punish any small mistake. The good news is that, for the first time in a while, the team elevated Vance to the active roster. Now, the question is whether he is just going to stand on the sideline or actually take over more snaps inside. This game is both a lab and a real test at the same time. If the kid steps in and holds up, the defense gains a piece that was sitting on ice for no reason. If he stays on the bench watching the same old thing, the message to the fan base is that fear of change still speaks louder than the need to build something for the future. There is a piece of this matchup against the Chargers that flies under the radar in a lot of outside analysis, but matters a ton: the surprise factor on offense. Until very recently, any defensive coordinator going up against the Raiders knew exactly what was coming. It was that Chip Kelly script: rigid, predictable, and easy to chart on film. The defense would build their plan during the week almost like they were just reviewing for a test. Now, with Greg Olsen taking over the call sheet in the middle of the storm, there is no recent tape of this offense really running with him in charge. That changes the game before kickoff even happens. Pete Carroll himself hinted at that when he said he did not want to get into specifics, because that is basically the only real edge this team has. When a coach admits that, he is telling you that in straight talent, the Chargers roster is better, and that the path to competing is confusing the opponent. And it makes sense. In the first meeting of the season, the Los Angeles defense put on a clinic. Pressure arriving early, tight coverage on Geno Smith's routes, Ashton Jeanty getting bottled up before he could get going. It looked like those guys were reading the call sheet before the snap. With the offense running like that, with no variation, any well-coached defense was eventually going to land on the same formula. Now the picture is different. Olsen showed up soaking in information at a ridiculous pace, exactly that drinking from the fire hose thing Carroll described. The staff is meeting, position coaches are giving their input, communication is being cleaned up so this offense can feel less stuck. To be honest with you, this kind of change mid-season is a double-edged sword. It can give the locker room fresh juice or double the confusion. From what has leaked out, the players bought in. They wanted this shakeup. The issue is that on the other side, there is a disciplined defense, and one name in particular who is a nightmare for any offensive plan: Derwin James. He shows up everywhere on the field. He lines up in the box and drops deep. He comes off the edge in blitz and matches up with big receivers one-on-one. Carroll himself said you cannot draw up an offense without circling his number on the board. If Olsen does not have answers for wherever James lines up on each snap, all this mystery around the new plan dies quickly, and the game turns right back into a headache. For Raiders fans spread everywhere, this matchup feels like a test of tactical character. It is not just about calling different plays just to say you did something new. It is about showing that this team learned from the beating in the first matchup and can adjust even without a roster full of stars. I want to hear your take in the comments on this chess match between Olsen and that heavy-hitting Chargers defense, because it ties directly into what comes next, which is how all of this hits Geno Smith mentally on the field. Changing the voice that runs the offense flips a quarterback's world right away, and that is exactly what is happening with Geno Smith. He spent weeks hearing confusing calls in his headset, trying to execute a plan that did not seem to match what was really happening on the field. Now Greg Olsen is right there next to him on the sideline, just a few steps away. He is ready to talk face-to-face. No phone, no delay, no message chopped up by stadium noise. For a quarterback living under the kind of pressure he has in Las Vegas, that is huge. When Gino says that alone brings a bunch of benefits, he is not exaggerating. Imagine getting hit all game, taking sack after sack, and still having to decode a broken call in your helmet. With the coordinator close, you can tweak routes right there on the sideline and realign protections on the bench. You can cool your head between drives. Olsen is not a rookie in this role. He has drawn up game plans, built opening scripts, and had to overhaul things in the middle of the fire before. And he seems to understand that this offense has some very obvious limitations. The biggest one is right in front of everyone's eyes. This offensive line is easily one of the worst in the league right now. Against the Browns, for example, Gino was sacked 10 times. 10. That messes with anyone. It is not just an ugly number on a stat sheet. It is your body begging for air, your reads speeding up because you are bracing for another hit, your confidence leaking away every time the pocket caves in on top of you. The team invested in skill positions and brought in talent for the backfield and the pass catchers. But without protection, all of that becomes expensive window dressing. You build a pretty offense on paper and leave the front door wide open for the pass rush. Gino himself has admitted he is part of the problem. He talked about feeling the pressure better, understanding protections, getting the ball out faster. He is right. The quarterback always carries some responsibility. But to be honest with you, anyone watching these Raiders games can see the main hole is still the line. It is not just about holding for half a second longer. There are plays where the collapse is instant, where the play is dead before it even starts. Olsen's mission now is to turn that ugly situation into something manageable. More quick game, more concepts that simplify Gino's reads, more use of the running back and tight ends as safety valves, fewer long developing routes that demand 4 full seconds in a clean pocket because that just does not exist in this offense right now. If he insists on replaying the old script, the sack numbers are going to stay grotesque and the quarterback's confidence will eventually be gone for good. If he accepts reality and builds a functional offense within these limits, this group might not become elite, but it can at least stop being a weekly embarrassment. And everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football wants to see that come with some attitude. Quarterback and coordinator holding themselves accountable, the offensive line facing the humiliation from these last games and answering with at least a little pride, the offense playing every snap like it is a character test. In the middle of this messy season, with more losses than anyone here wants to admit, Pete Carroll steps up talking about gratitude. And it is not that empty end of press conference speech, it comes from what he sees every day. He keeps hammering that since he arrived, he has demanded energy, a positive attitude and real brotherhood between the guys. And even with the scoreboard going against them almost every week, he still sees that standard being met. That says a lot about the atmosphere inside. The coach talks about players showing up focused, practicing hard, and pushing each other. They keep the environment alive even when the standings beat you down. That alone does not win games, obviously, but it does keep the season from completely falling apart, which is exactly what happens to a lot of teams in the same spot as the Raiders. There are franchises that, with a similar record, would have totally checked out by now. Here, there are still players wearing silver and black with pride, trying to squeeze something out of this weird year. He also let something important slip. He knows he does not work like everybody else. The way he builds practice, the different dynamics, the way he talks, some players are going to need time to adjust. And even so, he sees that the roster has bought in. That is culture being planted right in the middle of a storm. It does not pay off instantly, but it becomes the foundation down the line. Inside the locker room, the feeling seems to match. Geno Smith said Carroll is the same guy from day one. Same humor, same energy, same standard. He does not flip out because they lost 3 in a row, does not go into panic mode because the media wants him gone. To be honest with you, that makes it very clear that the Raiders' biggest problems right now are way more about structure and talent than about leadership in the locker room. They lack a line, they lack pieces at a few spots, there are holes all over the roster, but belief in the head coach is still strong in there. Geno even mentioned guys grinding in the weight room and studying on tablets, trying to tweak details to get a little better every week. All that work keeps happening even while the talk on the outside has already shifted to the draft and next season. Raider Nation is tired, I am tired too, but it is hard not to respect people who keep showing up like pros when everything is blowing against them, especially on a team that, before Carroll arrived, was stacking one questionable decision after another. For everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football, this talk about gratitude works like a mirror. It shows that the coach sees the effort, understands the pain of a bad season, but still believes there is a switch that can flip. The question is whether that feeling turns into a real reaction on the field or just becomes one more story about fighting through a lost year. Putting it all together, the picture around the Raiders right now is the kind that hits anyone who carries this shield on their chest. On one side, you have a team about to face the Chargers with not much left in the standings, but with a very real chance to be a rock in the rival's shoe and prove there is still silver and black pride. You have a star on defense getting doubled on every snap and still chasing the quarterback like every play is his last. You have fan pressure boiling for a change in the slot, with a young corner begging for snaps while a veteran who is not delivering keeps his spot. On the other side, you have an offense trying to refine itself with a new play caller, a quarterback who spends way too much time on the ground because of the offensive line, and a coordinator trying to build a plan that at least keeps the boat afloat. And holding the locker room together in the middle of all that, you have a head coach who keeps talking about gratitude, culture, and serious work even when the standings are brutal. Being totally honest with you, this moment for the Raiders is a crossroads. Either this shock of reality turns into better performances on the field, or we will look back and see just one more season of almost. So drop your thoughts in the comments, because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Raiders football.